London and Liverpool will be placed in Tier 2 of the new COVID-19 restrictions, but Birmingham, Manchester, Kent, Tier 3, prior to Matt Hancock making the statement in the House of Commons on the new tiers. The government launched a postcode checker for England's regions. This thing crashed within minutes of going live, just 1% of the population. 700,000 people will be living under Tier 1 restrictions. Around 32 million people, 57% of the population, Tier 2, while 23 million others, 42% of the population, Tier 3. Let's find out what's happening in different professions and areas. We'll talk to Helen in a second, hairdresser, but first, publican Andy MacDonald, landlord of Ships and Giggles in Preston. We spoke before, of course, Andy, after you'd kind of found a way of selling food and staying open. What does this mean for you? What's the deal in Preston? You're in Tier 3 now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still in shock. We just can't open. I'm absolutely gutted. You know, I'm lost for words. It hasn't properly sunk in, but it's like you find yourself constantly in shock.
Yeah.
Because by the time you finally get over it, something else has happened, and then now it's just got to the point where, like, what you doing? What am I doing? What am I going to do? I'm lost. I really don't know. I'm just trying to.
So you've gone from Tier 2 to 3, right?
I think so. We were in Tier 3 just before the lockdown happened, weren't we? Or were we in Tier 2? I don't even know. You were in 2
because you were able to open before, but it was substantial meal territory, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I've been through it all, haven't I? Yeah.
You've been in every tier. You've been in tiers that well, we're all in tiers at the end of this, Andy, I think. This literally means Christmas around the corner. You're the landlord. I mean, you mentioned to us when we spoke before that, you know, various businesses that you'd been involved with. This was really not a last shot, but important to make this pub work. And suddenly this gets bowled at you just before Christmas, which would have been the season one assumes where you'd have hoped to have been busier than ever.
Oh, praying for it, hoping for it, and then you just kind of deep down you think, nah, we're not going to get to open, and you try and tell yourself that because there's too many ups and downs, and you become so much more sensitive. But what I found is I just handled it by keeping myself busy, doing good things, and what I've been doing is it's escalated, and now we're feeding loads. Like, I've had thousands of people less fortunate now with free deliveries, free food, and all this kind of. It keeps me busy, keeps my mind kind of occupied on something, but I'm doing good. So I'm actually feeling positive during a really negative time, and I'm bringing a lot of positivity. And it's hard to explain, but when you hear other people's stories because I'm hearing a lot of stories how people are unfortunate, and they're financially affected by COVID, or they just can't afford food. And I'm talking to them and I'm providing them meals, and they're so grateful. It's kind of like, I'm not alone in this. There's so many people that are juggling together. When you kind of get together, it helps, it helps your mind, because finance is a thing that passed now. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Who knows what's going to happen? Who's going to come knock on my door looking for money? But for now, I'll just try and keep busy and keep happy and try and make people happy, because it makes me happy.
You sound like that kind of bloke that's got the, you're looking for solutions rather than problems.
Yeah. Oh, constantly. I'm keeping out the house. Can't stand lockdown. It didn't work the first time. When you feel helpless and you're stuck inside. So now, now I'm at my bar every day. My team are volunteering every day, volunteer drivers, and we've got donations, people buying meals.
So you've almost, your pub has almost become a charity in a respect.
Yeah, it's like, it has, but it's helped a lot of people and it's kept us busy, and it's non-profit. The good thing about what we're doing is every single penny comes in, goes out, and we're feeding more people, and it's kept me. It's kept me good. I think it's kept me as sane as I can be right now.
Well, that's one way to look at it. Listen, Andy, lots of luck. I sense we'll speak again as well before Christmas. But Andy MacDonald is landlord of Ships and Giggles in Preston. They're in Tier 3. Helen is the owner of the XL Hairdressers in St Austell in Cornwall. Now, Helen, I mean, it's not a day to smile, I suppose, because you'll be aware of other people's circumstances. But in terms of being in the right place, you're Tier 1, right?
Yes, thank goodness. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what anybody else is going through. I mean, we are so lucky down here in Cornwall, and we will just carry on as normal. I mean, obviously, locking down for the last month has not been easy.
So you can do You can do pretty much anything in Tier 1, can't you? You can tear the place up if you want.
We're so lucky, so lucky. Yeah, pretty much. We will just go back to work and carry on as we were doing before.
Yeah.
The clients wear visors, clients wear masks, we wear masks and visors, hand sanitizing, cleaning down everything after every client, and just carrying on as we were doing before. Really.
So, as I understand it, am I right in saying Cornwall's had no cases in the last week of coronavirus?
I couldn't say. I really don't know. But no new cases sounds.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Pretty likely if we're still in Tier 1.
Correct. Yeah. So we locked down in. You were in Tier 1 before, right? Is that right? Or were you in? So you're in Tier 1.
Yeah.
Had the lockdown. Then, of course, there was this moment of waiting, and we kept being told, well, most places are going to go up a tier, and I guess that would have been your fear.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fear that I think we all had down here in Cornwall is, the influx of holidaymakers that we had a few months ago. I mean, the weather was amazing, and we did have a lot of holidaymakers, and thank goodness everybody obviously is old, and we have been lucky. We have still stayed in Tier 1.
Yeah, I was one of those holiday makers. I should have nipped in for a quick trim, shouldn't I? Along the
you should have.
Along the way,
definitely. Next time.
Indeed, next time. But of course, you've already touched on it, Helen, in the sense of, despite the Tier 1 status, nobody can really get complacent. So things like the PPE and rubbing down and washing surfaces, that will carry on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if we all carry on as we have been doing down here, then there shouldn't be any cause for concern, maybe. But who knows? We just don't know. And like I said, I mean, anybody in Tier 2 and Tier 3, it must be such a nightmare. I cannot imagine.
Well, listen, Helen, good luck. Thank you for speaking with us. That's appreciated. That's Helen, who's the owner of Excel Hairdressing in St Austell in Cornwall. So one of the few places in the whole of the UK that's going to be Tier 1. So it's kind of business as normal down there. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you think about it, I went down to Cornwall. We went in the summer for about 5 days, and it was pretty packed down there, by the way. You couldn't I remember we tried to go to like Pizza Express or something one evening, and we couldn't get into Pizza Express. This was like a Tuesday, and the guy said, not until like the following Thursday did they have any availability. Because there were a few places open at that point, but they were still open. Everything was rammed. The beaches were packed. Now, what's interesting about that is that despite the fact that that's a well-known holiday place for people who are having a staycation, no big cases of coronavirus as a result of tens of thousands of people descending on sunny Cornwall in the summer. Curious, eh? Let's speak with James Thomas, who's the owner of Little Ships in Ramsgate, Kent, which has, of course, gone into Tier 3. Afternoon to you, James. Good to have you with us. Miserable circumstances, of course, in which to speak.
Yeah, it's not good at all. We're now in Tier 3 until, I think, the 16th of December.
And that's a review period, of course, isn't it? So
yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Just tell us what it means. Your restaurant is well loved, well visited there. I know it well. In terms of what it means for a business like yours.
Well, it means that we can't trade. I mean, we can do a little bit of takeaway and delivery, which is keeps certain cogs well oiled, but we just cannot trade. And it is about protecting lives, but it's also about protecting livelihoods. And at this time, we've got no direct autumnal winter help that we did in the summer, but we haven't got anything at the moment. So we are running on, when you get into that red bit on your fuel tank, we are running similarly. We are down to running on air, and we need to be open as soon as we can.
And of course, the Christmas period is crucial in hospitality. I mean, it doesn't get any more. I know that in your location, summer is important, but Christmas
summer
too.
And Christmas are the two busy times here with the harbour. They have the Christmas lights on all the boats that come out, and there's a great crowd, and everybody generally will have a nice time. But this year, it is very, very different.
Yeah,
I do find it very disappointing. we are a licensed business. A whole structure of restaurants, hotels, and bars and pubs we are licensees. We are licensed with liquor license. We're licensed on weights and measures. We are licensed with fire, food hygiene, health and safety, pavement licenses. We are quite a heavily licensed business.
Yeah.
And COVID plus, and I think it's probably quite one of the safest places to be, sitting at a table, being served food and drink. So it's really disappointing.
Yeah.
But we have to go with it, and there's not much else we can do.
Indeed. And curious that you could go around the corner and go into a gym with 30 other people all exercising in the same room, and that would be okay, which, set against what you've just described, does seem curious.
Traffic. Yeah, it's dispiriting. But we are a resilient lot, and I think we just have to see it through, and we pray for a better and bigger times. But we want to get back to at least tier 2, where we can trade like we used to in the summer, tables of 6, 2 meter difference, and masks and gel and everything else.
And you made it work. What does it mean to a business, like in terms of the business side of things here, James? What does it mean to a small business like your own?
Well, everyone looks at the figures of COVID in the on the counter in the country. The only figures I'm looking at are the figures in the bank, because the figures in the bank means, well, you can go on, and then it's strictly down to that. There are no white knights coming along. The white knights only happen when we open the door at 8 o'clock, and we can't do that. It's pretty difficult. I did have a solution, a rather wacky solution I thought about Christmas, where no one's talked about moving Christmas. They moved the Olympics. We could have delayed it. I know, yeah, but you laugh, but
I like it.
Well, there is a precedent. Back in 1582, yes, Gregory, we were on a different calendar. We were on the Julian calendar.
Of course.
And Gregory XIII moved us to the Gregorian calendar, and we lost 13 days. And so today, on the old calendar, would be the 11th of November, not the 24th. So there is a precedent. You could go back and say, temporary this year, let's move Christmas, give everyone another 2 weeks is what we've got anyway. And there we are.
I fear that might confuse Matt Hancock. That's my and I don't think it takes much, James, to confuse dear Matt. But I like the idea of moving Christmas in order to make this whole thing go away, so that businesses can enjoy the benefits of those kind of focused areas like the summer and like Christmas. Thank you to James. That's James Thomas. He's the owner of Little Ships in Ramsgate. They've gone into tier 3 down there in Kent. So he'll be experiencing a very quiet Christmas, it seems. There'll be a review in December, but we kind of sort of know what that review might say already, don't we? Mike Penny says, Hancock holidays in Cornwall, no doubt. Christmas break booked, therefore. Explains why Cornwall is in tier 1. Hancock credits glorious Cornish staycation for tan complexion. There you go. Which he did. I think there's a photograph of that happening. This one comes from, it doesn't say. Basingstoke is now in tier 2. We have 1 in 750 people infected. So why? Hancock is enjoying his power and is very unimpressive. My activities are gone. Choir, camera club, walking, football. When allowed, I get a round of golf in. However, compared to the poor folks whose livelihoods are on the line, this is nothing. We need strong leadership, but have got buffoons like Hancock and Whitty. I'd like to have credited that to somebody, but I can't, because it doesn't say who it comes from. We'll do more of that. There's lots more to come. More comment from you. And we're kind of digesting this. I sense there's been a bit of a lie told here. My government told me December the 2nd, the national lockdown is definitely going. Well, kind of. There's going to be 23 million people still in tier 3. There's going to be 32 million people still in tier 2. Some of whom before were in the previous tier. So that's like most of the country. 700,000 people are in tier 1. 0344 499 1000. What does it mean for you? Your livelihood, your business, the area that you function in, and sometimes it's the knock-on effects. So you can say, yeah, I tell you what, we're hairdressers. So we're going to open a bit later. That's a good idea. Let's open a bit later. Maybe open till 10 o'clock. I know some do. But no one's coming into town because you can't sit down and get something to eat. So there's all of that. The taxis that normally ferry people from stations and homes to pubs and restaurants, what are they going to do? Absolutely what they've been doing for the last 8 months. Pretty much nothing.